Are we
All right,
ready?
we're live. Yep.
3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? This is Black Comics Chat, and we have such a great show. But before we get into our guest, I want to make some quick introductions to the man, the legend, Marcus Qualley.
Wow, that's honor. That's an honor, man. I don't even know, man. That wow.
You know,
Okay,
I
cool.
try. I try to be as good as you when you introduce me.
No, I appreciate it, man. This is Marcus Kwame, aka Marcus McIver. You happy to be here, man. I'm definitely excited about our guest and getting into all of their super cool work.
Yeah, and if you don't know me, I'll let you know. This is Anthony Otero, aka Latin Negro, the Red Lion Driver, the undercover Sith Lord, and we have a great show tonight for everyone. And I'm just gonna apologize right now because I have to dip because I'm gonna see Ant-Man, and it's sad because I really wanted to be here for the whole 2 hours with our special guest, Vita Ayala.
No, that's me.
Yes, that's you.
That's you.
There I am. It's going to be a bummer that you have to leave. Enjoy Ant-Man. I've heard it's really fun. Have an extra popcorn for me, so spend an extra $30 for me.
I will.
Take out that loan to get those concessions.
I know, right? But I wonder if they give you a discount for stale popcorn. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, it just in trash bags. Like, take a trash bag.
All right.
Oh, Tony,
Yes.
Real quick before you kick it off, can I make a quick announcement?
Absolutely.
Okay. So listeners of Black Comics Chat, you guys all know that recently we had on Sean Pryor to talk about his Kickstarter campaign for Lifted of Gods and Thieves. He's in, the final 48 hours. We're under the 48-hour mark. He's very close, but he definitely needs everybody's support to get over the top. So we'll tweet the link out, but just go to www.liftedgodsthieves.com and just spread the word, whatever you can. If everybody pulls together, we can get him over the top. So let's make it happen.
That's right.
And now back to you, Tony.
All right. As soon as you tweet out that link, I'm gonna take a look because I think I added some money to that, but if not, then that's what I'll be doing.
Okay, cool. I'll find it.
That's right. All right. So we're gonna kick it off. So what we normally do is we ask what your origin story is. So please, where did you begin? When did you get your superpowers? Like, let's talk about your origin story.
I have real superpower in real life, and that is that I'm allergic to beef, which I got from being bitten by a tick. Does that count? Is that what we're talking about?
That absolutely counts. Absolutely.
That's true, but no, I know what you mean. I think I've told this story a couple of times, so I apologize to everyone that's heard the story before. But I grew up in New York City. I'm Black and Puerto Rican, and my mom, she was a single mom, and she would drag us kids along whenever she had to get anything from the store for a very long time, way longer probably than necessary, just because we got into a lot of trouble. And there was a little Korean bodega right next to the house, and they had a little spinner rack of comics, which is not a thing that happens anymore. You don't really see spinner racks of comics in like supermarkets and bodegas anymore. But so she would take us along, and one day I looked over at the spinner rack because I was bored out of my mind, and she wasn't going to buy me candy. And I noticed something really shiny on the rack. I was like, ooh, I like shiny things. I'm 6 or 7 years old. Yes, I must touch it with my sticky hands. And I walked over, and I picked up that comic, and it was an X-Men comic. And it was super shiny, and it had like Storm right on the cover, and I think Bishop and like Jubilee. It was the 90s. And then right below it was a comic with Wonder Woman on it, and I don't remember what she was doing. I don't even remember if that was like a new comic or someone had just stuck it there, but I remember looking at that comic and being like, oh, I need to buy this. This is what I need to, I don't know what I need to do and negotiate my mom with, but that's what I have to fucking do. And so, yeah, my mom agreed because it would keep me quiet probably. And she was tired. There were so many of us, and she was very sleepy. But yeah, I didn't learn to read for a couple of years after that. But I would flip through comics that my mom would buy me. And often those comics were like a Wonder Woman comic or something with a Catwoman on it. Or she was very into buying me stuff with like ladies. And then my dad, he had a bunch of old comics, some of them not appropriate, looking back for children my age, or even my age now, in my 30s probably. But they were very into like, you can read whatever you want as long as you're reading. So I'd flip through all those comics and I kind of started making up the stories for myself. And then flash forward, I worked at Forbidden Planet for about 10 years, starting when I was 19.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I love that place.
Oh yeah, it's a wonderland. So much stuff. It's just so much stuff. Trust me, it's a lot of stuff. I helped move that store down the block in like 2012, and that was bonkers. So there's a lot of treasure to behold. Wow. But you know, before then I couldn't really afford to read a bunch of comics, so I would just I only read like 3 comics a month. But when I started working there, part of your job is knowing the stock, and so I started reading a lot more comics. And I around this time realized that I could actually write them. That's a thing that real people did. That was a job that they had. People wrote scripts. I, up until then, legitimately thought that you had to be able to draw to write comics. I just didn't understand how they worked. It just never occurred to me to look at the credits. Like, why would I do that?
Right.
And I get this question a lot of like, oh, what does a writer do? You add the bubbles in. No, that's the letter. Their job. I could not even begin to do that job. That is so much harder than anything I have capacity for. And so I started reading a lot more comics to figure out how they worked, and I read a bunch of script books. And then in 2012, I was working at Forbidden Planet with Matthew Rosenberg, who writes for Marvel now, and Tyler Boss, who does a lot of work for a lot of places. And Matt was very, very kind to me. He's one of my best friends, and he was like, yo, you should pitch. You should stop just coming in like 2 hours early to write in the basement and not show anyone, and just actually do something with it. And I was like, no, I refuse. That's not how this works. You know, partially because I was like, people like me don't get jobs writing comics, but also I was like, no, because writers are sensitive creatures. We're very soft on the inside. We have like a hard armor on the outside made of jokes, but on the inside it's just like squishy. I was very, my wife calls me her delicate flower, and that's the truest thing. I mean, I'm from New York, so I throw down, but like my feelings get hurt. And so I was like, no, I'm not ready. And he was like, no, I'm going to drag you kicking and screaming.
Actually, if I could ask you real quick, what were you writing at that time? At that moment when you were in the basement,
prose. I actually wrote prose before I got into writing comic scripts. One of the things I studied in college was creative writing, and I've always been fascinated with prose because it's something that you can do by yourself, and in a very real way. And this coming, from being a Puerto Rican in New York, and the poets and all of that kind of stuff. No one can really tell you that the form that you're writing in is wrong. Right, just that they don't connect to it. And that's really powerful to me, especially as a person of color, because we're constantly told, right, that we're wrong. Hey, someone else has a pet.
Yes. Sorry.
It's not mine causing trouble. Yeah.
No, it's totally mine. My cat.
He's a baby. He knew it was fine. But yeah, I was writing prose because it was something that is, at least in the first draft of writing, it is very individual and very personal, and no one can tell you that you're wrong. And again, I'm a delicate flower. But yeah, Matt Rosenberg was very kind, and he kind of supported me in pitching and introduced me to a bunch of people that he knew, helped me kind of learn how to network, because I'm very loud, but I'm very shy, if that makes any sense. I like cover up my shyness by being as loud as possible. And yeah, and so I pitched to Black Mask, and they were interested in working with me. And I was introduced to somebody at DC, Sarah Miller, who I adore and is one of my good friends up to this day. And she was involved in the DC Writers Workshop. And she was like, you should submit an application to be part of this, because we'd love to have you if we can, if it all works out. And I did. And so DC actually published my first bit of writing, which was an 8-page Wonder Woman. So yeah, that's my origin story. I bugged my mom until she bought me comics. and then I got a job selling comics, which meant I had to read them. And then I got, I've been writing since I learned how to read, which was like 5th or 6th grade. And I was late. And it's something I think that artists of all kinds in general have in common, where you're compelled to do the art, whatever it is, whether it's visual or textual or make music. You just can't not do it. Right. And so I'd be in school not paying attention. I'd be writing instead. And then I managed to get into college, and I made sure that all of the things that I did in college had a huge writing component. So I have a philosophy degree, a psychology degree, and then I did creative writing. And then when it came time and I was given an opportunity, which that's the luck part, right? I was ready to begin there because I had been working so hard behind the scenes. But yeah, that's my origin. And then I was bitten by a tick when I was 15, and now I'm allergic to beef, which is real.
Wow. That tick could have at least gave you some tick related powers.
I'm saying, I mean, some sort of super strength. Like, I don't understand.
Exactly. There's, I think I mentioned one time on the show the kind of terrible but funny B movie Ticks from the 90s. It starred a group of bad kids that were in a special camp, and one of them was Alfonso Ribeiro.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he was playing the street dude. So it's a good, if you can see it for free, definitely check it out. I wouldn't necessarily drop any money for it though.
I'm gonna find it. It's probably on YouTube. I'm almost.
It's very entertaining. I don't think it was on YouTube as of a year ago, but hopefully somebody got on it. I had a question. I was fascinated by this phrase that you used about writing comics of resistance. Can you speak a little bit about that, and maybe the origin of you wanting to specifically tell stories in that vein?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a debate that people get into all the time, right? But I'm a very firm believer that art and the creation of art and being creative is inherently political. I think that it is very, very difficult to divorce an artist from their work. I think it's possible. And I think at the end of the day, you make the choices that you make and you draw your lines where you do. But in a very real way, just the act of creation is a political act. And what I mean by that is that each person comes from a very specific perspective and has beliefs and has life experiences, and you put that into your work. And there is no person that is apolitical, that is outside of a political sphere, because politics is the public sphere. That's what it is. And people that like to complain about politics being in art, what they really mean is that their politics aren't being reflected. And that usually comes from a place of just really not doing the work to realize that that what they believe isn't just baseline default. And so reading comics and other works, one of the things that's most important to me and that is most moving to me is when a creator, whether they be a writer, a visual artist, or a musician, recognizes this thing and decides that they're going to say something on purpose in their work, right? So they're not just going to kind of like get inspired by the gods and like babble in tongues. They're going to direct their work. And I think that almost every comic that I've read that has really resonated with me has done that. They're not all the same message, but I think that that's really important. And that's one of the things that I wanted to do in my work. I am, like I said, I'm Black and Puerto Rican, so I'm brown, I'm queer. I was designated female at birth. I'm non-binary, and just my existence tends to create a lot of tension and a lot of, it can be rough. It can be rough existing. I think that y'all understand that. This is called Black Comics Chat, so y'all understand.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to shy away from that because I can't. That's my lived experience every single day. And so instead, what I want to do when I create something, especially if it's creator owned, but I try to do this across the board, is I'm going to take control of the narrative and actually purposefully say something. So, for example, I have a book called The Wilds, which is it's a post-apocalyptic book. It's a zombie book, but the zombies are beautiful. And the main character is a Black queer woman named Daisy. And if even just like the plot itself, which is not going to be anything absolutely bonkers. I think post-apocalyptic stories have very similar themes that they're trying to explore, or at least ways that they explore them. And my book is going to be at least a little bit recognizable in that way. But just the fact that I have the main character not be straight, not be white, and be a woman is like crazy and divisive. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna use that, and I'm gonna tell a story from the perspective of this person, and I'm gonna be in your face about it because there's nothing else I can be. Does that answer the question? I tend to ramble, so you have to interrupt me. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely, it does. Since you mentioned The Wilds, let's get into it. First of all, what you definitely said, what you said was definitely true. But I also one of the things I was struck by in reading it is I think we've all consumed a variety of post-apocalyptic tales, and definitely since the turn of the century, there's been a flood of them, with the success of things like The Walking Dead. That being said, like one of the things I was struck by reading The Wilds is the way in which it feels very fresh. And it's and I think that's a challenge with post-apocalyptic stories. I was speaking on a recent episode about Octavia Butler's book, Fledgling.
I love that book.
Obviously vampires have been done to death, but one of the things I like about Fledgling is it managed to take subject matter that's been well tread and present it as something really new. And I think The Wilds felt like that for me, even in the sense, I don't want to spoil too much for anybody who's listening, but definitely what you're saying about like these marginalized characters, various marginalized characters being represented, which a lot of times in post-apocalyptic stories, we don't, those characters might be there as window dressing on the sidelines, but they're definitely not the focus of the story. So I was really struck by that. And then even the nature of the, plague in this case, the thing that's impacted humanity is unique compared to what we've seen recently. So can you, speak a little bit about that too, about approaching a post-apocalyptic speculative fiction type story with a fresh lens?
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for saying that. That means a lot to me. Like I said, I'm a delicate flower, and I appreciate that. It's funny that you mentioned Octavia Butler, because Octavia Butler is incredibly important to me. Her books saved my life, and also they're touchstones. I go back and I read them, and I reread them all the time. I'm actually in the middle of a rereading of Parable of the Sower, which is a story about a woman. Or about a girl transitioning into a woman, right? She's very young when it first starts, and then she kind of comes of age in a world uncomfortably like ours, but just a little bit further down the road into being the darkest timeline, who has to go on this journey because she's no longer safe behind the walls that she's grew up in. So when I was writing The Wilds, what I tried to do was, in terms of the themes, which I can talk about very briefly. Thematically, the story is about how people of color, especially women of color, especially Black women, are exploited. Now we demand. There's no ask. It is demanded that Black women do all this emotional and physical labor, and there's no compensation in return. It's like, oh, thank you, Black women, for saving us, but we're not going to help you. No, just keep doing what you do until you die and disappear, and then we'll ignore it. And a lot of us, especially nowadays, we buy into this idea, right? Because it really seems dire. It really seems like if we do not do something, the world will end. Right. And the main character, Daisy, again, this is just the themes. This isn't the plot. She really starts off kind of like buying into that because things are very dire. It's post-apocalyptic. And then slowly over the course of the book, she comes to grips with the fact that like what's happening is not okay. Fighting for what you believe in and taking care of your people and yourself is very important, but you can't lose yourself in that, because then you have already lost. There will be nothing. And it's okay to say no everyone has to help. It's not just on me. I'm not going to kill myself for you so you can live comfortably. So that's what thematically it's about, but like no one wants to hear about that shit. So there's like a lot of pretty zombies and it's like scary and stuff. And I think part of how I try to make a story that's a composite of all of these things that we recognize into something fresh is because we don't have enough fiction by or about brown people, brown defab people, you know, queer people, queer brown people, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And just taking all of the experiences that I've had and weaving kind of the themes that I've noticed in my own life into the work, I think gives it that freshness, because it's just not something that we have a lot of. There are stories by and about people like me, but not enough. And certainly, it's funny because Octavia Butler is super important to science fiction, but you know, we tend to like the names get erased,
Right.
if you know what I mean. And so, yeah, one of the things I wanted to do was take the things that I found important about the post-apocalyptic genre, because I'm a huge fan of that, and I'm a very huge, I love zombie stuff. I'm terrified of zombies because I'm a big baby, but I love that kind of stuff. I love Resident Evil. I grew up on that. I love Last of Us. There's a little bit of that in this. Fledgling is definitely in there. Like all those things that I love, I tried to take the parts that spoke to me specifically and then put them into the story. And I think that in some cases I was successful. In some cases, you know, hopefully I'll get another volume and you know, we'll shore that up and do a little better.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend the book to anyone. What can you tell us a little bit about just how the project came together?
Yeah, the core of the story about kind of exploitation, but also this group of marginalized characters. So Daisy is the main character, but there's a large secondary cast, a group of characters, secondary characters that are also of color, who are also being exploited. They have been in existence in my mind since college. When the story, the plot stuff was a lot different, but the core of the story was the same. And then I want to say a year and a half ago now, I don't even remember how long ago now, but I was on Twitter. And I spend almost all my time on Twitter, which is not good for productivity, but here we are. And I'm a big fan of video games, and I saw some fan art for this game, Overwatch, which I'm sure plenty of people listening have played or have heard of. And I liked it, and I followed the artist, and she followed me back, and we got to talking, and that was Emily Pearson, who's my co-creator on the book. And we were kind of exchanging ideas, and I was like, hey, I have a couple of things, like, would this be interesting to you? And she kind of singled out what was called the Sprawl at the time, but now it's called the Wilds. And I was like, okay, cool. What do you like to draw? Because I want you to not hate working with me. And she was like, I really like nature and pretty girls and mutations. And I was like, oh, fuck. Well, only one of those things is in the story. So give me a second. And together we kind of stripped away all of the plot stuff that had come before, most of it, not all of it, and came together. And her mom is a horticulturalist, so she knows a lot about plants. And we kind of talked about plants and talked about, you know, the disease and stuff. And yeah, together we kind of crafted what became the Wilds. I keep some things from her just to get her reactions as I'm writing them, which is kind of a dick move, but she's very expressive. And so I really love it. So like, she just finished drawing the last issue, the 5th issue. But as she was reading the script, she was like, why would you do this? I'm crying. And I was like, yeah, that's good. That's what I want. But yeah, we crafted the story together. And then we were lucky enough to get Marissa Louise to come on in colors. And she's one of my favorite colors. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are colorists, and they're all really, really, really good. So I'm blessed that way. But yeah, her choices were so incredible. Yeah, it was Twitter. Twitter made this book happen.
It was Twitter and Overwatch.
Yeah, I mean, Overwatch is mad important. There's brown people. That's why I like it.
Yeah, and
So
for listeners, that was Leo who just popped in.
I'm big
What's up,
big
Leo?
Overwatch. Dude, what's going on, y'all? Yeah, I'm a Zarya main. I'm a committed Overwatch file. And it's interesting, right? Because like Overwatch, just from the jump, they had this, I mean, not to put words in Blizzard's mouth, but they had this very fuck you attitude about the diversity in their game, where they're like, this is what it is, so deal with it. And then people like freaked out, and they're like, oh, like Tracer's this, or people freaked out when they had new characters, and they're like, yeah, no, that's our game. So you want to play our game?
I respect the crap out of that. Like, I just really do. It's like, no, we're making the game that we want to make. And I was just blessed with a hamster and a mech, so that's cool.
I haven't even played it on the PTR yet. But people are going to have on like the Hamtaro Overwatch character.
They made me so happy. I was like, sometimes things get real serious, and then they drop a fucking hamster and a mech, and I was like, that's beautiful. There's hope.
I'm like, there has to be a hamster dance emote. That's what I'm assuming. I haven't even played PTR yet, so I don't know yet. But there has to be. If there isn't one, they're going to add one.
It would be a wasted opportunity. Yeah. Anyway, who knew someone that writes comics is a nerd and likes video games? Oh man. Yeah, so the internet is wild.
Yeah. So my question, I'm sorry, I'm like literally walking toward the train station. Can you talk a little bit about your writing style? Talk about like how you are able to put thought onto paper and what's that like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to, so I worked in retail for a bunch, and then I worked as a security guard at the Met at night, which was wild. Yes, it is haunted. No, they don't come to life. If they did, I would not be alive right now because there's some scary stuff in there. And I would write on paper because I'd be able to do it kind of when I had a couple of seconds to myself. But now I write directly into the computer, and it is really, really weird. I grew up just with the notebook in my hand at all times, and making the transition to digital has been very, very strange. I'm in terms of like how I break down a script or a series, I'm very, very, very outline oriented. I have to break down the beats first. I can't just like, I don't know, we'll see when we get there. I go from like a basic series or issue overview to scenes, and then to pages, like page by page breakdowns. I can't function without them because, as you've noticed in this chat, I tend to wander, and you do not have room for that in comics. I tend to, in terms of like the nuts and bolts, I tend to script in a slightly looser style than some that I've seen. I spent a lot of time reading both comic scripts and movie scripts and I guess TV scripts, like motion picture stuff, just to kind of get an idea of what the flow is. And so I kind of merge the two together a little bit. It's much closer to like traditional comic scripting than movie scripting. But I want to give, my collaborator, whether they be my co-creator or if we're both work for hire, then my collaborator, as much room to do what they do as I can, because they're doing all the heavy lifting, so they should be having fun. I want to give as much as I can so that I'm not making them do extra work, but then move the hell out of the way so that they can just, I don't know how to draw. So like, I'm not going to tell them how to draw. I'm just going to tell them, what I was thinking for a panel or a page.
Do you not do a lot of stage direction? Is that what you're getting at?
I do some. So I think it was Joelle Jones that said this, and I'm not positive, but for some reason it's stuck in my mind that that's true. But I believe she was the one that said, a writer should give an artist an emotion and an action and get the hell out of their way. And I was like, that's beautiful. I like that. So I tend to kind of give a lot of tone stuff before I go into any panel breakdowns. And then once I get to the panels, where I'm at. And so I'm like, this is what they're doing. This is kind of what they're feeling. And then if I have dialogue in mind, I'll put that down. I'm always like, that can change. Just do what you do. And that's it. But I tend to communicate mostly the tonal stuff. That's where I really like, I'll write a paragraph or two at the beginning of each page, but panel descriptions are like, I don't know, like 2 sentences, maybe 3. But by the time that we get to that, my collaborators kind of should understand where I'm coming from. And if not, I'm very into like, please message me because this is, I want to make your life easier, not harder. I read like some Alan Moore scripts and they're just novels. And that was so stressful.
I fucking love his scripts so much, but they're ridiculous.
It was so stressful to read. When I remembered that someone had to draw that.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, but like, it was like, oh my God, how can you possibly? But then I've read scripts that are very sparse and almost don't give enough. And I'm like, all right, well, the artist is they're already going to be doing a huge chunk of the job. And now you just added so much more because you're not communicating with them what you're thinking. So I try to reach that middle ground of like, I'm not going to encroach on your territory, but here's the cool shit that I had in mind, you know?
Yeah. I think Alan Moore scripts are really fun to read, and they're totally insane. And from what I hear, it's like in the industry, the response to that is always people there are artists who love the shit out of those scripts, and there are ones that are like, oh God.
Yeah.
Oh God, here we go. Like, but as a piece of literature, I think they're really cool.
It's true. I mean, they're beautiful to read, and then you remember that it's not a novel, and you're like, oh my God, poor person, like poor Dave or whomever is drawing. But yeah, I think of scripts as a conversation with the artist. Sometimes, yeah, with an intermediary being, the editor is part of the process and an important part of the process. They're helping you communicate, and they're also telling you, the weak places where you have, you can only look outward. You can't really, it's very hard to edit your own work without any feedback. So they're there to help you. But I don't like conversations where it's just like screaming, this is what is going to happen and that's it. And I'm like, no, I come from a big family. I know what like communication is and I know what it's like when it doesn't work. So I just want it to be fun.
There's something like, are we in the portion of the chat where we can talk a little more about the wilds? Or are we? I missed the first few minutes of this.
No, we're right in the perfect time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, like because there's something about the wilds that I definitely wanted to bring up, which is this idea that, this has been explored before in post-apocalyptic fiction, but I feel like it's especially emphasized in the work, the idea of bureaucracy after an apocalypse like this happens. Like bureaucracy is a very strange theme in this book, and like the only immediate touchstone that comes to mind, and there must be another one, but the only one that immediately comes to mind is, I don't know if you've ever seen Jericho.
Oh yeah, not for a long time, but yes.
Jericho did that a bit, where like they really focused on the idea of like a resilient makeshift structure that emerges after some horrible thing happens, where humans try to kind of establish a framework where, they think things will work out. And it's like reading the wilds, I get flashbacks of like corporate America conversations that I've like had and dealt with. So yeah, I kind of like wanted to know what your ideas were for putting that kind of stuff in there, because I feel like it's in there like too much to be accidental.
It's there's a couple of reasons why that's in there. I think number one for me was that it would be so relatable to anyone that had any job where they had a shitty manager, just like anyone. It didn't matter what you did, retail or food service or working in an office, everyone would be like, oh, I hated that guy. Like he's the worst. And I think that it's really important to have things in books in general, in art, that people can touch and grab onto. It might not be what you think it is, but like I think that there are some things that kind of tend to be universal and they're important. The second thing is, so I'm a very big zombie genre fan, and I love the Romero movies, right? Mm-hmm. And one of them, which is not the best one probably, but it makes me laugh the most, is Land of the Dead.
I love that one.
Is that the one with the bunker?
That's the one with
John
city.
Leguizamo.
Oh, yeah.
Fiddler's Green, I think.
Where they start to get smart. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's also a theme in a bunch of his movies too, right?
Right.
But there was like a line in there where, you know, John Leguizamo's character is going out and doing all this fucking hard work and it's whatever. And he's doing it because he's been promised that he can live in this big skyscraper that's going to be safe and like blah, 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 blah. And Dennis Hopper, I think it was Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, it was.
Character was just like, nah, like, he was like, yay, we'll get there. We'll get there. And finally he gets to the point and he's just like, no, you're never going to have it. And John Leguizamo's like, yo, I'm good enough to build the place, but not good enough to live there. And I was like, that is the Brown experience if I've ever heard it. Like, and I think that that movie also did something else, which was, I really like that movie, even though it's ridiculous, which is really smart, which was that it didn't, like all the other movies, it told the story about the immediacy of the emergency. But human beings have this tendency, like weeds, to just persevere, right? And we eventually come back together because we're social creatures and we build, you know, community and civilization again. And when you have a big disaster, you have a lot of exploitation in whatever kind of, not government, but whatever group is in charge right after, right? Like there's, it's always just, it's super brutal and often at the expense of brown people, and women, especially women. And I wanted to put it in there because that I wasn't interested in telling the story of the immediate disaster. That's, we know what that is, right? Everyone's running around and screaming, they're shooting people. Go play Left 4 Dead. That's a great game, both of them. Just, you know, if that's what you want, then there's plenty of stuff out there. What I wanted to show is how people do these things to each other over and over and over again. And it tends to be the same kind of people that end up at the bottom. And that was, you know, I think that's because it's true. It's also very relatable. So yeah, that was on purpose. Humanity does it to each other all the time in general, but especially to brown people and especially to brown women. So yeah.
And I think, you know, that you spoke very eloquently about that and the way in which you really wanted to convey that whole, I mean, it's a whole thing. Like even today, a lot of the times people will, in a well-meaning manner, say like, "Oh, black women will save the world," or "Black women saved us from this."
It drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, and I see it drives so many people crazy. Like, and it's good. It's good. That's where, you know, Twitter can come in handy if people are open to learning from it, because, you know, you hear the voices of all the people saying like, "No, we're human beings," and this is like you could actually hand the wilds to somebody that was having trouble understanding that, you know, and because I think that it's very instructive, and you see it through the lens of Daisy, who like you mentioned before, initially is willing to buy into this structure and has this sense of responsibility, but you know, the events that take place kind of really bring to light what you're saying, that the unrealistic expectations. And also her boss, I've definitely worked for that dude.
So have I. The thing about
condescension is strong.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's that condescending tone. I've had bosses that have treated me like I was stupid. And I've definitely played into that a little bit, because when people think you're stupid, they are liable to say and do things around you that they wouldn't do around a person they consider like intelligent. And that's how you gather that dirt, where you're just like, oh, you thought, okay, all right. So now let's talk about that raise. What's going on? It's just, it's a relatable experience having that boss that takes you for granted, overworks you, and then looks down on you, even though they could not do what they do without you. It's very relatable.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm like sweating over here. Got a little heated.
No, it's okay. It's good to know you're passionate about your material. It's good.
I'm passionate about my people.
Right.
I think that someone has to be. And what's really lovely is that more and more you hear people that aren't like me speaking to, or rather helping and supporting people like me. And that's really heartening. And that's something also that's great about Twitter. It can be like this sinkhole of despair, but also I see a lot of hope on there, and that's really amazing. And that's something also that I kind of want to put you know, I put it into my work when I can. So that it's really cool, but it's exhausting. It's exhausting. People just being like, Black women are superheroes and that's it. And it's like, okay, we're people though. Like,
right. Yeah. And but I mean, and you're absolutely right, especially during it's important for all of us during these dark times to hold on to those bits of light, because they're out there, you know. And I think that you know, art is a perfect way to communicate those things.
yeah, for sure. It is both a place for escape, but it's also a place for catharsis, and I think that that's really important as well. And sometimes people find they enjoy kind of cathartic art as an escape as well, which I think is fine. You know, you're allowed to go look at kittens and puppies, and you're also allowed to, you know, look at people, you know, resisting actively.
Yeah, definitely. If we could, maybe I'd like to talk about Submerged a little bit. I had the chance to read the first issue, and it definitely, you know, pulled me in and made me want to see where the story is going. Can you tell us a little bit about that book?
Yeah, absolutely. Submerged is a contemporary retelling of the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. But it's the characters are siblings and not lovers, and they are Latinx, and it takes place in the New York City subway, because anyone who's ever been on it knows that that's hell.
Especially in the summer.
Oh my God, it's like being inside a hot mouth. It's just the worst. Yeah, that is kind of it's a in the vein of a classic descent into the underworld story. It's kind of my love letter to Alice in Wonderland as well, which is one of my favorite stories of all time. It is also about regret and about people being forced to kind of take responsibility for other people. The main character, Alicia, is an older sibling. She's an older sister, and her younger brother, Angel. I mean, like I said, they're Latinx. So she has been made to take responsibility for her younger brother their entire lives. And he's kind of been given a lot more free reign. And she both loves him very much because they are very close, but she's also resentful of him. And a year prior to the beginning of the story, they got into a very, very big fight, and she just stopped. She was like, I'm not talking to you anymore. I can't do this anymore. But he calls her begging for help because he tells her that he's in danger. And so she goes out to try and find him on the eve of the biggest storm to hit New York City, which is based on Hurricane Sandy. I was in the city when that hit, and that was real wild. So yeah, that's kind of like the basic structure and the intro to it. I don't know how much you want me to go into it, but yeah, it's about love, and it's about loss, and it's about you know, caring for people but wanting autonomy, and about regret. I think that those things are very, very universal again.
Yeah, and you know, it's very obviously, you know, different in tone from the Wilds. Can you how did you, I guess, how do you approach these books as far as, like, you know, the varying subject matter? Because I know that you know, between this and you know, we'll get into some of your DC work and your other books, but, like, you know, you do cover a range of stories. So, like, what's your process like in, you know, jumping between these different narratives?
Every story that I kind of approach, I have some sort of idea or philosophy or position or question that I want to unpack, that I want to explore. And I kind of craft and paste the narrative around that. With this story has been kind of percolating in my brain since Sandy. But also it's just, this one is very personal because I'm an older sibling, and my relationship with my parents is not the relationship in the book, but there is I think a lot of probably Latinx or also just brown older siblings will understand the kind of complicated feelings that you get when you are expected to be a mini adult and be in charge of these other people who then get to have more of a childhood. And I wanted to explore that in a way that was, I think, healthy and more kind, because again, I didn't put my actual story into the book, just kind of my feelings, because I think part of creating art is also therapy, and you're trying to work through the feelings inside of you and connect with other people in that way. So yeah, with Submerged in particular, I was looking for a way to kind of unpack my own feelings of like complicated love with my own family, who I'm very close to. Almost everyone in my family. I love my family very much, and they love me. But yeah, I mean, sometimes there's still some hinky stuff in there. In terms of like things like the wilds, I was much more interested in kind of a larger, more in your face, very obvious political theme when I was going into the wilds. I wanted to talk about exploitation. I wanted to come at a subject that made me very angry in a way that would be constructive and instructive if I could. And again, we can talk about the DC stuff too, but that's kind of a theme that runs in my work. I have either an issue or a question that I want to explore, and then I use the work to do that.
Right. So yeah, let's use this as an opportunity to switch over to DC. You mentioned having been through DC's talent development program. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that, and what was the first book that you worked on with DC?
The program was wonderful. It was an incredible opportunity that it was singular, right? So I can't say I haven't had it since, but it was an amazing experience in which I could interact with people who are kind of either peers or slightly above or with me in terms of being published and of writing comics. I think the first, not counting the anthology that was basically our homework from the class, I think the first thing that I worked on was I co-wrote a story, a Green Lantern's story for the holiday book in 2016. No, I'm sorry, I lied. Things get like confused in terms of when they came out, so it's just really. I wrote a 2-issue Amanda Waller story. That was the thing after the homework assignment. Yeah, they let me play with Amanda Waller, and they let me play with I was like, can she be as wide as she is tall? And they were like, hell yeah. Awesome.
Now, was this Rebirth or was this New 52?
It was out of continuity, I think. Okay. It was kind of semi-linked to the movie, but it wasn't in the movie universe, if that makes sense. Yeah. There was multiple people working on kind of offshoot two-issue Suicide Squad stories. So Michael Morisi did Captain Boomerang, and then Chris Sabella did Killer Croc, and they let us play with those characters. So it's I had to adhere to things that had happened to the fridge-sized wall. I love her so much; she's one of my favorites. But it wasn't as strict as it would have been if it was in the current canon.
And you're DC ride or die, right?
I love DC. I mean, I grew up on Marvel and DC, but I've always ridden blue. I've always flown that flag a little higher. I've connected very deeply with Wonder Woman because I mistakenly thought she was Puerto Rican for an embarrassingly long amount of time. She says "hola" all the time. You know what? The more and more I tell the story, I'm like, I'm not crazy. There were things.
Yeah, I don't think that's embarrassing.
No, it was embarrassing because I was
you telling me that she's not Puerto Rican?
Oh, I'm sorry to break your bubble.
Shit.
Oh man. But I connected with her very deeply, and also, I mean, she is an intelligent and compassionate woman. She's also super strong. She can kick the shit out of Superman. Probably, I don't know. That's one of those fun Goku Superman debates. But she is very, very powerful. But what stood out to me about her is that she's compassionate and she cares about not just the people that she's saving, but about the people that she's fighting. She's trying to understand and connect, and she's an ambassador. And I was like, oh, I love that. That's great. And then, like, you know, I mean, Batman, like, I think the first movie I saw in theaters that wasn't like a kid's movie was Batman in 1989. I was 4 years old. My mom was like, I'm going to see this Batman movie. I guess you're coming with me. and like that made quite the impression on me. And then the Christopher Reeve stuff. Like, I grew up in a time where there were much more successful DC movies than there were Marvel movies. Although, to be fair, Marvel was killing it in the cartoons. Like, the X-Men cartoon was baller as hell, and like Spider-Man, like, that was my jam. But I don't know, DC, to me, when I was growing up, I tended to see myself more in those characters in a much more relatable way. I love Renee Montoya. She's one of my favorite characters of all time. She's like my number 3 favorite character of all time. And, you know, she came from the cartoon, and then in the comics she came out, and I was like, oh, that's super important. You know, we had Catwoman, who is unapologetic about her life, which I really appreciated. So yeah, I love Marvel. Don't get me wrong. I'm actually a pretty big Marvel fan, but I saw myself in DC more often.
Cool. Yeah, DC. I remember as a kid, they, you know, I was definitely leaned more Marvel, but what I really dug about DC is, I don't know, it felt grittier. You know, I think language-wise, they were able to get away with a little bit more than Marvel during the whole comic code time.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they were straight up burning like Wonder Woman books, and like both companies did a really good job of trying to, you know, get into what was happening in their contemporary time. But like, you know, I don't know. I just really like Wonder Woman. I don't know what can I say. And like, my Green Lantern was black. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I always loved Vixen. Like, so I was like, all right. I don't know.
Cool. So you're kind of in your you know, your good place there. Being able to...
I'm incredibly happy. Yes, I get to play with some of my favorite characters, and also they send me really interesting problems to solve. I wrote a 10-page, is it 10 pages? Yeah. Story for the Wonder Woman annual, which came out like 3 days before the movie dropped, which I was like, okay, no pressure. That's fine. No pressure. But they were like, yeah, we'd love, you know, here's King Shark. That's going to be the bad guy. And I was like, King Shark. Okay. All right. He's just like, he's a shark and he wears pants, right? All right. Okay. I'll see what I can do. And it was a really fun kind of puzzle to put together a story in which we had Wonder Woman and King Shark and did something meaningful with the two of them, which I hope I did. I think I did. I tried. So I am in the good place.
Cool. We just, if I could go back to your Amanda Waller story, you know, obviously she's been around for a long time. Being with your approach of writing comics of resistance, and, you know, just kind of weaving in some of these themes that are important to you, like, how did that play out in that particular story?
Amanda Waller is a really interesting character to me, because she is, it's not that she's morally ambiguous. I think that there's no ambiguity about her. She just lets you know what she's about right away. And she's about getting the job done no matter what it takes. She is the most extreme. She's like, by any means necessary. If that means I'm putting a bomb in your neck and I have to set it off, I'm going to do it. Like, that's where she's at. And so trying to come up with a story where I got to use the characters of the Suicide Squad also, because I love them. Like, I love Harley Quinn and Katana and you know, yeah, they're all a lot of fun. Trying to craft a story in which I had all these characters and I just didn't just go murder a bunch of people was a fun problem. And one of the things that has always drawn me to Amanda Waller is that she has made a lot of sacrifices in her life. She doesn't just talk the talk. She's not just asking you to give up stuff. She has given up a lot, and she will continue to do so because she believes that what she's doing is worth the sacrifice. She has lost family members because she just wasn't there, or because of her position. She has watched people die that she is cared about or that were in her care. And she's not a monster. She's not a robot. She feels those things. And I love when people write her and you get to see those like moments of like through the armor, the little like crack in the armor, like, oh, there's a person in there and they're hurting, but they're going to do what they need to do. And so when I sat down to kind of break the story, I thought, okay, well, that's what I like about her. And that is something that is really relatable as well, because I think everybody has had to compromise or make sacrifices in order to help other people or help themselves or just survive. How do I tell the story of a woman who seems completely stoic? How do I get in there and show that this is what's going on in there? And so what I did was I decided to write a story literally about what was going on in her mind so that I could explore that a little more and show the kind of strength that she has. She has a very specific kind of strength and it's way different than mine. But I find it really, really powerful. And that's what I wanted to explore. Again, I kind of start with a problem or a question. So yeah, she's rugged, man. I love Amanda Waller. She keeps us safe.
Yeah. And I think it is, you know, always good if a POC writer can kind of tell that story, because I, like you said, getting in her head, I guess it's been done, but you know, I think perspective is important.
One of the things that was important with her too was like, you know, certain parts of her story were written at certain times when certain things were, that was just how you wrote them.
Right.
And some of it was troubling to me because I live now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How do you reconcile that with this character that you love? And I wanted to show that like Black women just don't get to be that kind of strong and powerful. They always have to work in a certain way and love and cry and do things in a certain way, or else they're considered, you know, strange or wrong. And I was like, no, I want to explore who she is, and I'm not making a judgment call on that. I just want to show who I think this character is, and what makes her tick. And it is completely valid. And I wanted to, that was my way of reconciling kind of the things that had happened to her by showing how she had internalized and processed them, and not me being like, and she's wrong. I'm just like, no, this is just what it is. I'm not making a call on this. You are the person that gets to make the call. And there was a quote on the tombstone at the end of in the last scene of the second issue. She's visiting the graves of two of her children and her husband. And there was a quote on the tombstone, and it was the original was a different quote, but it was not something that we could get the rights for, unfortunately. But it was about how the end is important, but the journey is really what your life is, basically. Mm. And that was like what ended up being the center of the story for me.
Cool. And, you know, also on the DC tip, I know you're a big Batgirl fan.
Yeah.
So what was that like? What was your experience writing Batgirl?
I loved it. That was so much fun. I really like writing things that are kind of like all ages, or like at least not geared super towards like adults. I like writing that stuff too. Clearly, I'm writing two pretty rugged books right now, but Barbara Gordon is just one of my favorite characters of all time, and I loved Oracle, and I will always love Oracle. That's Barbara Gordon to me, ride or die. But having the opportunity to write Barbara Gordon in a time where she's still struggling, but she has this optimism, which is so fun. Like, and being able to write a story. Again, I wrote this story for one of my best friends from college. That's the theme to the story was about how, even though we don't always have time to talk to each other every day, you still love the people that you love, and they still have changed your life for the better, and you're grateful for them. And so I got to write this story for my best friend, and it's just fun. And she kicked the shit out of like a gross misogynist dude bro, which was, I was like, can I do this? And they were like, yeah, it's fine. It's just have her kick that dude in the face. I was like, yes, it's a white dude in cornrows, and she's just kicking him in the mouth. This is the best. Oh God. I can't. he's such a good villain because he has a punchable everything. Like that team, Brendan and Cameron and Babs, goddamn, they made some good villains. Yeah, that was a fun time. Batgirl and Supergirl were just such a joy to write because they are slightly to the left of all this grim dark stuff. Like they still have to deal with it and the fallout, but their perspective is one that is optimistic, and that is, it's not about not dealing with it, the trauma. It's about doing it in a way where you grow, and I love that so much.
Cool. We're almost at the point where we get into the chat portion of the show, but I wanted to ask, I know you have some projects that are obviously in the works, some of which you can speak about, some of which you can't. Like, what are some things that people can look out for from you in the coming year?
So Submerged, the first issue came out on the 4th, and that will be 4 issues. So that will continue to come out. The Wilds has 2 more issues coming out. One will be coming out at the beginning of August, and the second, or the 5th issue actually should probably be coming out at the end. And then I was lucky enough to be brought on by Valiant to be part of the team that will be bringing you a new Livewire series, which is super cool. And my co-creators, my collaborators on that, Raul and Patricia are the team from Secret Weapons from last year. So that is a thrill for me, because Secret Weapons is one of my favorite comics that has come out in the last like 5-10 years. That book is really good. Eric did a great job, and as you know, writing it, and then of course the Raul and Patricia are amazing. So yeah, Livewire. I get to write Livewire, which is super cool, and I'm like secretly geeking out about it. Not so secretly.
Yeah, that's my favorite Valiant character with my favorite art team from last year.
No pressure, none at all.
Fuck it up.
I get notes from my editor, and a lot of times it's just a random like email or text, and just says "Bring the Fury," and I'm like, "Will do." So that's my hashtag for this book, is "Bring the Fury." I'm doing it.
Is that in the current? I'm reading a bunch of Valiant books as usual. Is Livewire's fucking around with Ninjak right now? Or is
I don't know if they
dead?
still is. They were like flirting. But I think that Harbinger Wars 2 has kind of changed the game for everybody.
Right.
I don't know what Colin's doing right now either. Ninja K. I laughed so hard when I read that. I had to put down the book for fear of tearing it, because I was laughing so hard at Ninja A, Ninja B. I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, it's all about Ninja G. I talked about this on like
Ninja
G like needs her own series like desperately.
Ninja G, I was like, oh my god, it's a black woman with an afro. She's the G'est of G's. But
Yeah,
I'm
like
call her Jag. Like, I need you to know that that's true. And in my mind, she's also like a Jag, like a judge, attorney, like general. Like,
put it all in. No, I love it.
It's done.
I'm kind of like, I'm a little bit peeved that I feel like I haven't seen that cosplay yet, and like I really need to see that cosplay.
It'll happen. It'll happen.
It has to happen.
Oh my god, Ninjag! I love it. I laughed. It was uncomfortable how long and how hard I laughed at that. But I'm not sure if Amanda and Colin are still a thing. Bringing down the entirety of the United States is kind of rough.
Yeah. That really does promote erectile dysfunction. It does. It's true. Makes things difficult.
Hey, it shows you who's ride or die, right? So here you go.
Yep. Yeah, like it's funny again, because the same art team from Secret Weapons, like I feel like, I mean, it's not like Livewire has not been prominent, but I feel like her presence specifically in that book was like a really important part of like bringing her character to a forefront.
Absolutely. The love that team clearly had.
Yeah.
Just everyone on that team loved Amanda so much, and I had to lay down when I finished that book. I was like, oh god, this is so much. It's one of my favorite teen books that has come out. It reminds me of like my favorite things about the X-Men. We have like this woman who spent her whole life working for this organization, realizes it's bad, or at least it's not doing what it should be doing to help people, and is kind of like excommunicated. And it's about her building her community and actually helping people like on the ground. I was like, I can't. This is too much. This is too good.
No, like one of the great things about that character, and this also speaks a lot to Joshua Dysart, who's one of my favorite comic writers of all time. Like what he did with that character in Harbinger, like made it not just, it wasn't just a wake up revenge story. It was like she had this like journey of her eyes being opened that was not instantaneous, where she's like still working for Toyo and she's still believing in him, like until there's just no way to.
And that's one of the things, like he raised her, like, of course, like I it's so understandable why it took so long. Like that was, no pressure.
No, I'm saying like that to me is a lot of the strength of her character, is that she had this arc that like could have gone a lot of easier ways. But instead they like really took you through this thing where like, if you look at the Valiant universe, like from the reboot, it's sort of been this story of her becoming an individual from a really fucked up upbringing. And like now she's there, and now you're there, Vita.
It's a challenge. I love a challenge.
I love it. I love it.
I was so thrilled to be able to be part of the team because again, one of my favorite books the last 5 years, but also to be able to work with a character that is so complex and so visceral. Like she's so powerful. The issue, the like prelude issue of Harbinger Wars, where she shuts off everything and then just lays down, which is also relatable because I'm tired too. I was like, the amount of control and thought that she has to go through every day not to do that, that's so fascinating to me. She's a very mindful, complicated, thoughtful person and character. And the amount of like, it just makes more and more sense why it would, Toyo was able to kind of make her see what he wanted her to see, because she has so much going on, and to be able to explore that, and to explore her feelings for just in general for the people in her life is going to be, it's super fun. Super fun.
Hells yeah. She's also the only other person who wore the exosuit. I always say that, like, I love that. So good in that suit. I know. That's like one of the best moments in Valiant. It was so good. Oh,
I screamed. I was like, yeah.
No, yeah, and like they remember it because like when she runs into EXO for stuff, like there's a sort of, it's weird, right? It's sort of like meeting up with like your ex and their new beau. Like where she's like, yeah, I had that.
Yo, it's so fucked up. Like I just feel so, and like oh god, yeah, no, and she knows it too. Like she's like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, hey, I remember that suit. So good. Nah, I don't want it back. It's okay. Yeah. It's like oof, woo.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, she looks so dope in that suit. I would like, I don't know if Valiant does Elseworlds, but like I would read like 100 issues of her in that suit.
Oh my god. No, I actually like applauded alone reading that comic. Like when that happened, I was like, yes.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah, y'all should read Valiant if you're listening. I don't know if
we will. Start with Secret Weapons. Definitely, I will definitely be reading it.
One of the strengths of that book too, a lot of them actually, is that they are interconnected, but you don't actually like, I read Secret Weapons and as I was going through, I was like, oh, I didn't actually have to read anything before to get into it. This is a very approachable book, but because there was still stuff in there that was really meaningful and really interesting to me as someone with experience in the universe. So that's one of those books, whereas if I was still working at Forbidden Planet, I'd be like, here you go, read that, just do it, it's fine.
No, it's like I feel like that's sort of part of Valiant's steez, is that like their books are interconnected that way. Like the thing I always say, like I actually like I DM Joshua Dysart about this specifically because it's like Faith is blowing the hell up, and it's great because Faith is an awesome character. But like I didn't understand that character until I read his introduction of her in Harbinger. And then I was like, wow, like it's crazy because she's crafted as a personality that's like very nerdy and very into all this stuff. But then when you read Dysart's material, you realize that like like being into nerdy shit is like all she has to connect with her dead parents.
Yeah,
And it's like there's actually a lot of pain associated with her fandom. And it's like, but you don't get that in the like Faith series. Like they don't bring that back up. You just have to know it. Like you have to read the character and like know that about her. And but I feel like Valiant's very good about that. Like they don't want to pressure you into reading every single book to like understand anything that's going on. But if you do, it's going to be super rewarding.
Yeah, and that's really great. Faith is such a great example because I love that book. I mean, Jodie Hauser did a great job as well, and like, and just it was fun, but then it had its kind of like really dark stuff, and it was just that was a really solid superhero book. But then again, if you like you said, if you read this other stuff, you go back and reread, and you're like, oh, I've gotten so much more. This is so great. And I love stuff that does that, where you can reread. I love rereadability because I grew up poor, and that meant that I had to reread stuff a lot. And so,
same. Yo, that's so big. Yeah, like I would memorize like my old Archie digests because that's all I had.
I used to get the like who's, like the DC ones, and then the Marvel like universe, like those things with all the. And I was just like, I'm gonna make up my own stories because it's much cheaper to just read all these. That's something also too that I wanted to do in the wilds, and you'll have to buy all 5 issues to find out. But I put a little backup story in the wilds, and each issue has 4 pages of it. It's 20 pages long. Yeah. And then when you get to the end of it, it fundamentally changes how you see Daisy or some parts of her. So that on a reread, you have all of this in your mind, and a lot of her choices make even more sense.
I love backup stories. They're the best.
There you go.
Cool. That was your super powered Valiant minute.
I know. Yeah, I'm good now. I got it out early.
Leo usually does the Valiant minute, but this was a special one.
Happy to be a part of it, guys.
Right on.
Cool. So Leo, you want to give a WinCon update?
Yo, WinCon was really dope. I'm mad that I missed Vita, though. They already left when I showed up because I was crazy late because the trains sucked from the Bronx. WinCon was dope. Tony, I think, bounced out. Tony was there like much earlier. I know that Foxy Jezebel had a very well attended panel, which I don't know if it's live. Is Foxy listening? If Foxy's listening right now and she wants to post it, I know she was working on editing a video of it to get it up. But no, WinCon was cool. It's a really cool space. It was spread out in a way and kind of confusing, just from like what I was used to. But like there were hella people out, hella cosplays. Like a hot as hell day in Brooklyn for the trains not to be working right. So hot. Yeah. But yeah, Regine killed it.
Yeah, as always, Regine is amazing, and the full hustle just at all times. She was outside front and center too. Like it was really hot out there. I was out there, but she's not willing to ask you to do something she isn't willing to do, and that's inspiring.
Yeah, that was the first day of the heat wave, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Oof. I gained like 4 shades. I got home and my farmer's tan was inspirational.
That's right.
It was probably, and the ether was there, Marcus, and I know that your wife had some stuff being.
Yeah, and myself as well. Yeah, definitely shout out to Carbon Fiber. Yeah, tell us about that experience.
They had like a crazy setup with like miniatures and kind of like little design projects and stuff, and a lot of stuff for kids. They were positioned right on the first floor. Like most of WinCon was like downstairs, but they were positioned like right on the first floor, so they had like a lot of interaction from the young folk. And they just had like a really dope table, and that's Carbon Fiber, that's Gray Williamson. I got to talk to Gray for like a little bit. And Andre Robinson was there too. From
cool.
Comic-Con. Yeah, he came through. It was it's like WinCon is sort of family like, It's got that.
I gotta make it next year. It's going to be my mission to be there.
We're gonna do it next year. Yeah.
It's super dope.
Cool. Yeah, definitely big up Regine, man, for just pulling together. I've been, seeing the articles and the photos and everything. It looks amazing. So, amazing as always.
Yeah, I heard my article got some people out too. Unless Regine was.
Oh
Just
yeah,
nice.
yeah. Let's what article do you mean, Leo?
Oh, I did a little interview with your girl on Shondaland, and yeah, that might have. I'm told that pulled some folk, and I hope it did. It went up the day before, but yeah. No, we
Actually, what else have you written this week? You have some new.
Oh, I had something go up today. It's sci-fi. It's not. Look, it's not. It's just some little shit.
Did I miss that? What? Hold on.
And I interviewed a cinematographer for Sorry to Bother You.
Oh,
About one of my current favorite film of the year. And yeah, we got to talk about stuff. And like I want to say the article is not spoilery. In fact, Boots' daughter actually tweeted and said that it was a good article and that it wasn't really spoilery. It has a slight possible spoiler for one scene in Sorry to Bother You. Today is the first limited release of the film, so I don't want to talk too much about it, just in case people are in places where they can't watch it so easily. I need to wait till next week. But yeah,
I have to wait till next week.
Yeah, Marcus is one of those people, with the present company included. So yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? But like, that's the film event of the year, in my honest opinion.
Oh, I cannot wait! It's going to be showing at the Angelica, and I'm 100% going to make the trek.
I'm gonna go see it a third time. I've seen it twice so far, and I'm gonna see it. I'm paying money to see it because it's that good and that important and that resilient a film. Can't wait.
I'm so pumped.
Definitely. Maybe you should stop speaking news. It's funny because every few weeks on Twitter will tell me that Alexandra Shipp, who plays Storm in the current X-Men films, has said something a little silly in regards to representation, and she's a little clueless about colorism. I haven't really brought it up on the show just because I'm like, hopefully somebody will tell her and she'll listen and she'll figure it out. I don't even want to necessarily make it about her, but I do think that there's a more important discussion to be had about, like, Hollywood and its exclusion of darker skinned actresses.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this, like, every couple of weeks when I just wish that she would stop. It's like you don't have to say all this, but what essentially what's happened is she's a lighter skinned actress, which I'm happy she's getting work, but she's portraying Storm in the X-Men universe, who obviously is one African and has traditionally always been portrayed as dark skinned. And so people have had commentary, particularly darker skinned women, speaking about how that's a role that could have gone to numerous talented darker actresses. And Alexandra Shipp has just been pretty defensive about it, which on one hand it's like, I get it, you're somebody working, but you just don't have to respond. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have high hopes for the Dark Phoenix saga movie anyway.
I have like very low hopes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think that this particular X-Men franchise has earned the right to tackle that, really.
I think this run of X-Men can totally get rebooted.
It must, and I mean, I think that's definitely coming, because I think
Wait, which X-Men? Which one?
The like X-Men Apocalypse, X-Men Age of Apocalypse.
Oh, the movies. At first, I thought we went back in the comics. I was like,
no, like the new run of X-Men flicks, like the new batch.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't Marvel own them again? Like Disney?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, and Age of Apocalypse did badly.
I haven't had a chance to see it. I'm okay because I do love Oscar Isaac. I will see almost anything he.
I do, but I think he looked goofy as hell and all this.
Yeah, and I don't think they utilized him. The script.
You did see it. You did see it.
Oh, I did see it. Yes,
okay, all right.
I kind of forgot I had seen it, but I did see it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, I think Disney has the rights back, so I think a reboot is coming at some point.
I'm into the idea of exploring what might happen with X-Force. I'm kind of more into that.
I just really, so my wife is a super big Shatterstar fan, just speaking on the side, like spin-off X stuff. And she saw that trailer for Deadpool 2 and like lost her shit because she was so excited. And I was like, baby, you know they ain't gonna you know he gonna die. You know that, right? Like it's just the way she's like, no, they're gonna, you know, if he dies, they'll bring him back and they're gonna make a whole movie about him. I'm like, all right, okay. You feel how you need to feel.
I still have to see Deadpool 2. I wanted to. It just came out at a time when I wasn't able to get there.
Same. I mean, I really want to. If it's playing anywhere in the city, I'm gonna go see it just because I got to support my people. I mean, you know, they did what they could for our people. There's like a surprising amount of like representation in that movie, which I was not expecting, quite frankly. But I've heard it's a lot of fun. I have not had a chance to see it, but I've heard it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, Tony's already gone, but he would disagree with you. Tony had a muted response to Deadpool 2, but I'm not. No. I'm with it, and I mean, like, not to reroute from the Storm discussion. I mean, I think
that's fine.
Oh yeah, sorry, no. We can definitely go back to that.
That's pretty much it. I mean,
no, just because it's this kind of thing where it's when these types of decisions get made, you're kind of like, so like nobody was there to just tap somebody's shoulder about that. Like no one said like, yo, this might actually like cause something. That's the stuff that always concerns me more, and that worries me about like work going forward, because my assumption is no one was there to do that. If no one is there to do that, that means no one's there to like handle the other big decisions that are also important. So no, I mean, like it's a strange colorism conversation, because it's a colorism conversation about a problem that hasn't really ever come up, a dark or not dark storm. You know, it's like you just created a new problem that no one's ever even thought we were going to run into. Right. And that's the kind of, you know, that's a few steps back. Yeah.
You know what it was? I mean, honestly, I've been waiting for Angela Bassett to play Storm for a long time, and then
Lord.
She's having a moment. I mean, this would be the time to get her out there. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I think you're right. But then like this conversation, like this has been going on, right? And I was like, who like, I would like to fan cast that. Who are you going to cast? Like, what would we do if we had the choice? And then Black Panther comes out, and I'm like, we have so many choices. There's not just one. You always hear about the one, like, oh, there's that one brown, like super dark skin like actress. I'm like, oh, there's a bevy. There's like half a planet. Like, just
here
we are. And it's so funny too, because again, we're having this conversation about Storm, but then Marvel also was the one that was like, here's Black Panther. here's your beautiful, like, you know,
there's a myriad of
just so many embarrassment of riches of incredible actresses. Here you go. It's just like, oh well, yes, more of that. I'll take 7. Thank you.
Well, it's possible to be done when, and I'm gonna say when, not if, but when, you know, Storm is eventually cast more accurately. I don't even think, I mean, there's obvious choices like Lupita or Denai Guerrero, but I think it should be somebody we haven't even necessarily heard of yet, you know, because that's the thing, is like, a lot of times you'll have you'll have a Lupita and then she's everywhere, and then Hollywood gets to pat itself on the back and say, look how we represent it. You know?
Yeah, for the one
that's like proven is a gainer at the box office, so it's like an easy ass pick. No, I totally agree with you.
I agree as well. One of the things that I liked about the idea, because I didn't see Age of Apocalypse, right? But like they cast all the like baby X-Men, and I was like, yeah, just use people I don't know who the fuck they are. Just do that. Yeah. I mean, they ended up casting like Sansa Stark for Jean Grey, but I was like, all right, fair enough. Like she's on TV, she's not as much movie, so I'll accept it. But like, yeah, just just pick people. I have no idea who they are that like are really good at what they do. I am also super out of touch. So like I went to go see Spider-Man and I was like, I don't know who Tom Holland is, but this kid is adorable. He should continue to like, you know, if we can't have Miles Morales Spider-Man, then if we're gonna have Peter again, like he's a great Peter. And I had no idea who he was. I just found out that he was a dancer. I was like, well, everything makes much more sense now.
No, but there is isn't there something sort of treasured about unknowns in superhero movies? Like how that like can make a person. There is like something sort of dreamy and awesome about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that is big. I mean, am I crazy? Like, I mean, Chris Hemsworth wasn't
you're
really
absolutely
shit like when he was cast as Thor, and that sort of has like become like we're still doing that. So let's keep doing it. I'm so game for it. I'm so game for it. I trust good casting directors to find good people.
Yeah, and we've seen that it's possible.
Yeah.
We've seen Black Panther, we've seen Wonder Woman, we've seen there's not just in superhero movies too, like just across the board we've seen it's possible.
But there's something special about it as a superhero, isn't there? There is something like sort of like there's something sort of star making because when you and I'm pontificating, maybe I'm off base, but like when you go to like a movie, when you go sit in the theater to see like an unproven actor or actress like play a superhero and they nail it, it's a magic moment. Like you feel like you're discovering it along with them, and it's really special.
Absolutely, it's already iconic just going in. And then you get that swell of emotion. And for people that are closer to our age, it's also nostalgic where you're like, I get to see this thing that was meaningful to me come to life. How wonderful. And because you're not, you know, if it's an actor that you don't know, then it's like, you're fresh to me. You don't have all this baggage. You are just this now. Yeah, I mean, I know that like Chris Evans was like Johnny Storm or whatever, but honestly, he was the dude from like Dream Date to me, and then he was suddenly Captain America. I was like, this is great.
Yeah, no, you're imagining. You're absolutely right. Your imagination is more open to it. You know. I mean, that's the thing with I obviously Sansa Stark. She's a great actress, but I had, other than the movie being bad, I had trouble. You know, suspending my disbelief that she was Jean Grey because, you know, she's so recognizable from that other role that it's harder to like, you know, take this character that you've known since childhood and through drawings and just like, you know, put this very known actor's face on it.
I actually, that was one of the things that's so funny. I had the opposite feeling. I was like, oh, it makes sense to cast someone that plays Sansa Stark so well as a Jean Grey character. That makes a lot of sense. She's also like she's like
there's overlap as far as their characters.
I think so. Not in the like in the ways that make you want to like just throw the book down in a rage because she does something dumb. Not like stuff like that, but like she's the golden girl of this powerful man who is benevolent but also rules through power. Like he has actual power and like he's trying to do his best, but then things go awry and his children end up having to fight for themselves. And she very much has both had to struggle, but also has had this very oddly sheltered life. She's, you know, and then with Jean Grey, like she was, I mean, she's Marvel girl. She is the, you know, when Xavier points to a model student, he points to Jean Grey. You know, that kind of feeling where it's like, yeah, definitely like that's daddy's girl, like right there. And then, you know, things get real and she suffers because of her position and because of who she is, because of the power that she has. Yes. But also because of her association with Xavier. And I think that it's not exactly parallel, but I think it's very similar. So I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Sansa Stark. Sure.
Nah, you sold me on that. Wow, that's spoken like a writer.
I should do it for a living. One of the things this reminded me of is it's not a new actor by any stretch because he's the love of my life. But The Dark Tower came out and that's a terrible movie. But Idris Elba plays Roland, right? And when I heard that shit, I was so excited. I flipped the table. I like karate chopped something in half. I was so excited. I was like backflipping because I knew that there were many people that were going to go see because it was Idris Elba that had never heard of The Dark Tower, which is actually one of my favorite books, the first one specifically, The Gunslinger. And I knew that people would then go buy that book because they had no skin in that game. And they're like, oh, I want to know more about it. And instead of envisioning the white dude from the book, they would just see Idris Elba. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Please do that. Can we just...
Yeah, I was so disappointed when I heard that it wasn't, it didn't live up to expectations. I like practically had my ticket in hand. I hadn't bought a ticket yet, but I was getting ready to see it that weekend. And, I just heard a very detailed breakdown of some of the ways in which it fell short.
Yeah. And it's impossible. Like, it was unfortunate, but it should have been a miniseries. You can't even do the first book in an hour and a half. That's impossible. And my wife, it's her absolute favorite. Like, she cried in disappointment. She was like upset. And I was like, baby, it was an hour and a half. What did you expect? Like, there's just no way. You go because Idris Elba's pretty and he's going to be wearing a duster. Like, I just don't.
Yeah. It sounds like me watching Annihilation.
I actually really liked Annihilation. That's interesting. It's not at all like the book, but
yeah. And I know, Leo, you're a huge fan of the book too. It's interesting because
that book is real good.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people that I know, obviously, Vita, you've read the book, but I know I've spoken to other people who haven't, and they really enjoyed it, as its own story. So
yeah,
I still have to check it out.
The director or the writer, it was the director, I think, that said that, and the writer, that it's not like a port of the book at all. It's like what a fever dream of the book would be. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what it's like. It's definitely, I felt like I was having a fever dream the whole time. So that's right. I don't know. I liked it. I mean, there were definitely problems. They definitely whitewashed that main character, which is real rugged and real rough.
Did they?
Oh yeah.
She's Asian in the series, but it's not described in the first book.
It's described in the second one, which is fair. But I mean, they also it's not described at all in the first one, so they could have just made it anyone. They made choices. These are conscious choices that you make. The default is white. That gets old. But I love Natalie Portman, so I was like, I'm gonna see it anyway. Tessa Thompson's amazing. I'll literally watch anything for her. So
she's great. She's great in it.
She's great in it.
It has a couple of good scenes.
I think that if you ignore everything before they get in there, I think it's a pretty solid fucking scary movie. I think the first 20 or 30 minutes where they're just tooling around outside, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about your life. I don't care about anything that came before. Just get into the shimmer. Just go. Just get into the weird place. Give me all that weird shit. You don't need to ground me in reality. I just walked in off the street. That was normal. Make it weird. I don't know. You know what? I went with a bunch of ladies, and then I brought my wife, my mom, and then I was there, and then my brother. Was my brother David there? No, my dad. My dad was there. So my mom, my dad, my wife, and me. And there was just that scene at the end. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but every lady in that theater, that fucked us all up. I mean, I'm non-binary, but I certainly was DFAB. And you're just oh, that is way too real. This is the scariest thing I've ever seen. And nothing happens in the fucking scene. It's just a mirror movement. And I was like, this is the most eerie shit I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's that scene is quite interesting. But I mean, I don't. And Marcus, you don't want to default into me shitting on Annihilation here.
No, we don't have to do that. That's a conversation that we can talk about.
Okay, all right. If you want to talk about that, I'm totally down to talk about that off mic.
Yes, we can talk about it all day. I actually don't have any real skin in that game, but I enjoyed it for what it was.
Speaking of Tessa Thompson, she was she had a short but really enjoyable role in Dear White People season 2. Did you either of you get to see that?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. I won't spoil too much. It was interesting because she played Sam in the film version, and she came back and had a role in which she very much interacted with Sam's character. So it was kind of it was an interesting little in-universe flip. But yeah, Tessa's dope though.
Her role in Sorry to Bother You is that's the best film role of her career.
I can't wait, man. I can't wait.
I'm super excited.
It's the best film she's ever done. And when I interviewed her for BGN, she sees Dear White People as the most important career choice. That was something that was huge to her. And like I said, the Tessa Thompson rule. Tessa Thompson cannot be in anything bad.
Hmm.
She's never been in anything bad.
She's certainly good in everything she's been in. Right? So whether or not you think Annihilation was bad or good, I would
She's great in that.
I would
She is
challenge
great in
I would
No,
challenge
and
you to
it's
say
not.
that she's not.
No, that's true. And I mean, and I don't think that film is like, you know, a bomb or anything like that. But no, she is. I like who she is in that. And I like where her character goes and what she does with it, and like her choices in that are good.
I got immediately, as soon as that dropped, I got like 85 text messages because The Wilds had dropped like that week. I was like, all right.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Cool. I guess the only other bit of news, I don't know if you had anything, Leo, but I definitely want to say a quick rest in peace to Steve Ditko.
Steve Ditko, that just
Yeah.
man. That's one of the greats. Capital T, capital G.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was 90, and he was the creator of Spider-Man. You wouldn't get Tom Holland's Spider-Man without Steve Ditko.
Yeah, 100%.
Rest in peace to that dude, and just as a visionary, like making comics that look like the comics he made when no one else was doing that.
Yeah.
Just like really, really like just madcap creative choices and the work he was doing. Like I wasn't around like for Ditko's heyday, but I can't imagine that shit of like picking up like an issue of Nick Fury and that's where you get that shit. Like that's crazy. I don't even know what that's like because I live in a world after that existed. Yeah, like people must have picked that up at the newsstand. Like,
yeah,
what?
And
what
you could just walk by a newsstand and see it. You could just do it. Like anyone could see that. Like anyone. Oh god. So I actually just saw it on my like half an hour ago on the trending like topics on the side. I was like, what?
Yeah.
90 years old, good long life, and a lot of great work.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Speaking of newsstands, it's when you brought that up earlier, Vita, I was thinking about that's a very common theme with a lot of our guests because if you're of a certain age, you remember that and that was a perfect introduction. And I think that there's a little bit more of a wall of entry, you know what I mean? Like these days, because
you mean comics newsstand?
Newsstands or spinner racks or just anything. Comics used to be everywhere, and obviously kids are finding them. But I don't know. I just wonder what the discussions are going to be on podcasts like this, maybe 20 years from now.
Kids sneaking into comic stores when they should have been at school and like stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. Kids find a way, but I mean,
no, they do. And I also feel like there has to be something with there have to be young people who maybe are using like family accounts for like all you can eat plans of Comixology and shit like that.
I'm sure
people are kids are stumbling onto some weird shit. They're stumbling onto the digital newsstand.
I mean, there's if there's illegal streaming for video, I remember reading scanlations of manga when I was a kid, like before it was out in America. That it's got to be out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting because that in a real way, like, oh, you know what? They're in libraries now.
That's true.
That is true. I love that. I love that they're in libraries.
Yeah, we did not have that when I was a kid. Yeah.
Free comic books.
Best comic books.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can stumble onto really weird shit too, which is the best part because I think that libraries they're very good about curating like all ages away from like more mature stuff, but like no one's on you in a library. You can just wander wherever you want.
Read that, Sandman. Go ahead.
Yeah. Kind of weird, like the dude from the Resident Evil games, but he has like comics instead. What are you buying? What are you buying? It's just like Sandman and Hellblazer, like Moon Knight. It's like, yeah, give me some of that.
Oh, man. I think we're winding down, but one question, I definitely, because I know you're a video game lover, Vita. So what are some of your all-time games on your favorite systems?
Oh man. Oh god. You know what? Funny enough, I am prepared for this. I'm gonna give you the list. I carry it around with me because it was gonna be a tweet, and then I got too lazy to make it into a tweet.
This is exclusive.
This is exclusive content right here, never before said on a podcast or interview. All right, I'm gonna go down the list real quick. For Nintendo Entertainment System, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. Even though that is the weakest of the Castlevania games, we just played that one forever. Like
that shit is important.
I love it so much. And you get to the end where you have to the secondary ending, and then it just glitches out every time, and you have to restart the game. Something about that, like, oh god. Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Zelda: Link to the Past. That's one of the most important games that got me into gaming further. That game was so fun. I'm watching my wife play right now, and my blood pressure is through the roof. Nintendo 64. That's a hard one. I'm probably gonna have to go with Smash Brothers. Although I have a Xena fighting game for the 64, which is really baller. So that's a secondary, like a honorable mention.
You ever played Sin and Punishment?
No.
Yeah, that's a deep cut. That's all right. That's all right.
That's all right.
I was just curious. No one ever brings up 64, so I was like, oh, that's okay.
We had my brother had a lot more games than I did, but we had Smash Brothers was a big one. I liked the Xena game and made them play it. And GoldenEye forever. That's an evergreen game. Like, it's unfair to call that your favorite 64 game because it's like, yes, of course. Like, what the fuck? Sega Genesis, Sonic 2. It came with the system, and holy crap, we spent so much time playing that game. And then we got the Sonic and Knuckles, and you could be Knuckles in that game, and it was over.
Yeah. Sonic and Sonic 2 were like game changers. I just remember when those came out.
I played the shit out of those. Yeah, no, that was 2. 2 gave you the good touch. Yeah,
it was perfect. Like that game, and then it had a consolation prize for the younger sibling because they couldn't be Sonic, but Tails couldn't die.
That was
that was me and my brother. Yep, me and my brother.
That was
you can't be a dude, but you could fly, and Tails can't die. And I was like, oh, that's genius.
I also thought the split screen racing was decent. Like I used to.
It was.
That was a fun mode. Oh man,
that's such a good game. Dreamcast, Jet Grind Radio. That is one of my favorite games of all time. That game is untouchable.
I think I played that. Yeah.
Oh, it's so weird and so fun. I like music and weird music in games, and I was just no,
that soundtrack is iconic.
Oh god, I have it on my phone. I just listen to it all the time.
Yeah.
PlayStation 1, Legend of Mana. I replay that game as often as I can.
Super weird game.
Real weird
game.
You build the map every time that you play, and then the way that you build the map changes what interactions you have. That is a level of genius that I wish to achieve. That is the best choose your own adventure ever constructed. Holy shit.
Re-released or ported or anything? I feel like I don't think it has.
I don't think so. I have the original disc, but I don't think I've seen it on the network. I should check again because that game is really, really good.
Well, that's a cool game. I've never beaten that. I never owned it, but I borrowed it and I played quite a bit of it.
When you replay it, your map is still parts of the map are still there, but then you can't certain things change. So if you can replay it on the same save file, it's weird. It's a weird fucking game.
Yeah, it's really odd. The art is beautiful in it. It's really amazing art.
Yeah, and one of the things that I loved about it as a young baby gay was that the figures were very androgynous. Yes, they were technically a boy and a girl, but you honestly couldn't fucking tell the difference. You could not. Which I was like, sweet. I can this one with the hood can have a very big sword, and this one with the little hair clippies can have a giant hammer, and that's great. You can just move on.
If you ever start rapping, I'm just saying, young baby gay.
Young baby gay. I want to assemble a rap crew called the Empty Rappers, but it would be with a W, and all of our album covers will have candy on them. What was I doing? Oh yeah, PlayStation 2, Silent Hill 2. That game, I don't sleep anymore. I haven't slept since I was 16 years old. That game ruined my life. So scary. Oh god, no. It's so good, but yeah, I can't play that at night anymore because I know it's coming. PlayStation 3, Fallout New Vegas. That is one of the best games ever assembled, and I will fist fight for that game. That game is so good. Xbox Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball, which is a game that you can play with one hand. Funny enough, they designed it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then wrapping it up is for the Xbox 360 is Borderlands. That series is untouchable to me. That's actually my favorite game series of all time.
Really?
It's so fucking weird.
Have you played this? I haven't played the adventure. Have you played the adventure one?
No,
the Telltale one. I haven't played that.
I played the first chapter, but I don't own it because I don't have time to play video games anymore. That's why I don't have any next gen stuff on there. Yeah, I played the first chapter and it was super fun and super ridiculous. That was like a game series where like in the first one there was like the guy that would always be white was a black dude, and then like there was also like possibly a Latinx dude, and then of course the girl. There's always just like the girl, and then a giant dude who's always my favorite. He's just big and punches things, and I was like, I choose you.
This is that dude is usually not a black dude. Yeah, he's
100% white
or whatever. Yeah.
He's a soldier. And then in the second game, they make it a white dude, and I was like, "You've lost me now." But then they have a tiny, clearly Latinx dude named Salvador who's half the size of everyone else. And I remember I played half the game, and I was like, "Why is the crouch button fucking broken on this goddamn game?" And then my brother runs by because we were playing together, and he's like, "Nah, man, you're just that short." And I saw myself on his screen. I was like, "Holy shit, this is the tiniest man ever! I love this so much." He's just all upper body.
Yeah, no, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I will spare you. I'm like super into video games, so I will spare you all the handheld stuff. But that is those are my top choices for console games.
Cool.
That's a good list. All right, people. Well, Vita, it's been just a huge honor speaking with you. Where can people find you on the internet? I
am at definitely Vita on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter, I live there. Instagram, I'll go over and visit on occasion. Most of the stuff that I've worked on is available digitally through Comixology. But a lot of it should still be available to you physically through your local comic shops. And if you live in a place without them, then there are many larger comic shops that actually ship out to lots of places. So yeah, find me online. I try and be friendly. Mostly I post about political shit and comics. It's just like really pretty art, really, really pretty ladies, and then fuck Trump.
It's a good combination.
A happy post fuck Trump day.
Yeah, especially after the last few weeks.
Oh my god!
That's a whole other hour though. I'm not even gonna. I will. Shout out to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez though.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, that's a bright light.
That's right.
This time.
That's right. I saw someone on Twitter drop some ill shade against her haters, specifically Bernie Bros. They were like, "Hey, she managed to do exactly what he can do in the exact same system, and she didn't have $1 bajillion behind her." It's like, oh, here you go, buddy.
Yeah. All right, Leo, where what do you got going on, and where can people find you?
You can find me at Leonardo EFF on Twitter, and I don't know what's going on. Pay me to write, and you'll see me more places.
Yeah, pay him.
Yeah, hook me up. Yep.
Yeah. And definitely there's a wealth of really dope Leo writing out there. So, if you follow him, you'll
Oh my god! Oh, dude, I'm sorry. You just reminded me. Sorry to cut you off.
That's all right.
I did a film review for the new Purge movie that's on our Nerds of Prey, our favorite podcast, Nerds of Prey. So that's the gang there. So yeah, check that out. Check out the review. I love writing reviews for them because like they just take them.
Yeah.
With like companies being like, you can't say that. It's like,
well, as we mentioned last episode, Shannon is a amazing editor, so it's not like they just take them because they settle. It's just
no, yeah, I love
what they require and the rigor that they're going to put you through, and you deliver. That's what it is.
There you go. So yeah, and also, and honestly, since it hasn't come up this episode, go see the first Purge. If you can tolerate some of the fucked up imagery in it, it's really cool. And Elon Noel is like going to be the next big action star. Cool. He's amazing.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Marcus? Where do people find you?
You can find me on the internet at Marcus Kwame, marcuskwame.com, and I'm on Instagram as at Marcus_Kwame. Yeah, so that's where you can find me.
Amazing.
And,
Sweet.
All right, so yeah, definitely your video. We're gonna be looking out for all the goodness you've got coming out, and I hope that you'll come back to talk about the things that you couldn't speak about today.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun. Thank you for letting me ramble.
Oh no, our pleasure.
Anytime.
All right, people. Good night, and shout out to the audience. You know, for all your great commentary and Shannon with the jokes.
She's quick. I love it.
Yep.
All right, so yeah. All right, so Black Comics Chat will be back at you soon, and everyone have a great night.
Have a good night, y'all.
Good night, everyone.
Peace.